The wind carried a chill that morning at Silverwood Cemetery. The sun was still low, soft gold spilling over marble stones. A woman stood hidden behind an old oak, clutching a bouquet of white lilies. Her name was Evelyn Grant, a woman known across the city for her fortune, her power, and her pride. Yet at that moment she was not a billionaire. She was simply a mother, trembling behind a tree, afraid of what she was seeing. A small voice drifted across the quiet. "Grandma doesn't want us, does she, Mama?" The words hit Evelyn like a blade to the heart. The little boy, no more than 4, was kneeling beside a gravestone, her son's gravestone. He traced the carved letters with tiny fingers. The boy's eyes were a clear green, the same shade as her son's. His hair curled the same way. He even tilted his head with that same stubborn flick she used to tease him about. Evelyn's knees nearly gave out. She had come to lay her lilies flown in from South America, perfectly wrapped, spotless. The woman at the grave, a young black woman dressed in a worn jacket, held wilted carnations from a gas station. $3.99, the kind of flowers people buy with coins, not credit. Same stone, same tears, different worlds. The woman's name was Alina Brooks. She knelt close to the marble, voice barely above a whisper. "I failed you again, Daniel. No good flowers this week. No money left for the good ones. I'm trying, baby. I'm trying." The boy leaned against her. "It's okay, Mama. Daddy doesn't care about flowers." Evelyn's throat closed. Daniel, her son. Gone 4 years now. And this boy, this child, was 4. Her mind spun. She remembered that phone call, the one she ended too soon, the girlfriend she'd refused to meet, the mistake she told Daniel to handle quietly. And now here they were, the woman she'd rejected and the child her son had left behind. Her own grandson, just a few feet away. Then footsteps approached. Heavy, deliberate. "Problem here?" The voice came from Carl Jensen, the cemetery caretaker, a man built from equal parts bitterness and boredom. He wore a uniform that smelled of soil and resentment. "Just visiting," Alina said softly, standing tall though her voice trembled. "We won't be long." Carl circled her like a wolf scenting weakness. "This is the private section. Premium plots. You got papers for this grave?" "It's his father's grave," Alina said, her chin lifting. Carl snorted. "Lady, that plot costs more than your rent for the year. Try again." The little boy pressed close to his mother's legs. Evelyn remembered Daniel doing that when thunder frightened him, hiding behind her, peeking out with the same eyes. "Please," Alina said. "We're not." Carl grabbed the boy's arm. "Don't touch him." Alina lunged forward, but he shoved her hard. She fell, hitting the headstone. The sharp sound of impact echoed through the quiet cemetery. Blood stained the marble where Daniel's name was carved. Evelyn froze. Every muscle screamed to move, to shout, to stop it. But guilt held her like chains. The same guilt that had silenced her the day she'd refused to meet her son's love. "Why doesn't the man like us, Mama?" the boy cried. "Some people see skin before hearts, baby." Carl kicked dirt over the fallen carnations. "Next time bring proof or don't come back." The boy's lip quivered. Alina's hands shook as she picked up the dirty flowers one by one and placed them back on the grave. "Your daddy would be proud of how brave you are," she whispered. Evelyn's chest burned. That woman, that stranger, loved Daniel enough to bleed for his memory. And she, his mother, had done nothing but hide behind wealth and pride. As Alina and the boy walked away, the little one turned and looked back at the grave. "Mama, does Daddy know we visit?" "He knows, sweetheart. He knows." When their footsteps faded, Evelyn sank to her knees in the damp grass. Her expensive coat brushed mud, but she didn't care. The truth hit her like a storm. Her arrogance had cost her 3 years with her grandson. 3 years of laughter she'd never heard, birthdays she'd never celebrated, stories she'd never told. She could buy companies, control markets, change governments, but she could never buy back time. And when she remembered her last words to Daniel, "Handle your mistakes privately," she wanted to scream, because now his mistake had a name, a heartbeat, and a pair of green eyes that mirrored his father's. Evelyn stood slowly. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she whispered, "No more mistakes." She took out her phone. "It's time I do something that actually matters." The next day she would find them, the woman and the boy. She didn't yet know how, but she would, because redemption doesn't begin with apologies. It begins with action. Evelyn didn't sleep that night. The memory of that cemetery burned in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Alina's bloody hand and the boy's terrified eyes that looked too much like Daniel's. By morning, she had made a decision. Her driver stopped in front of a small roadside diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place Daniel would have loved. The sign was faded, the paint peeling. Inside, the smell of grease and burnt coffee lingered. Evelyn sat in the corner booth, her designer coat at odds with the cracked vinyl seats. She watched the waitress moving between tables, shoulders tight with exhaustion. It was her, Alina Brooks. Her name tag hung crooked on her uniform, the fabric stained from long days and longer nights. Her hair was pulled into a rough ponytail, yet even in fatigue there was a quiet grace to her. "More coffee, ma'am?" Alina asked, polite, professional, unaware of who sat before her. Evelyn nodded, trying to steady her voice. "Please." As Alina poured, Evelyn noticed her hands, and the same hands that had gathered dirty flowers from the grass, the same hands that had held Daniel's son. Then the kitchen door swung open. A man in his 40s strode out, wiping his hands on a greasy towel. His name tag read Mark Denton, the manager. "Brooks," he barked. "Table 5's been waiting 10 minutes. "I'm getting there," she said softly. "Excuses don't pay rent," he snapped, then lowering his voice but not enough. "Maybe single mothers shouldn't work jobs they can't handle." Alina's jaw tightened. She turned back to the tables without answering. Evelyn's fingers curled around her coffee cup. Every instinct screamed to intervene, but she stayed quiet, watching. Moments later, the diner door chimed. A small boy walked in, clutching a backpack too big for his frame. His eyes were green and unmistakable. "Mama," he said, running up to her. Mark's face twisted. "What's this?" "We're not running daycare here." "School pickup fell through," Alina explained quickly. "He'll sit in the corner, quiet. I promise." "This isn't my problem," Mark said, his voice rising. "You want to keep your job? Handle your personal mess somewhere else." The boy shrank behind a chair. Evelyn could see him trembling. "Please," Alina said. "He's not well today. Breathing trouble. I can't leave him alone." Mark grabbed the boy's arm. "Then take him out." Alina lunged forward. "Don't touch my son." The crash of glasses echoed through the diner as she stumbled into a table. Water splashed across the floor. The entire room went silent. Every pair of eyes watched. Evelyn stood, her heart hammering. "That's enough," she said. Mark turned, scowling. "Ma'am, this doesn't concern—" He stopped mid-sentence, recognition dawning. He had seen her face before. Everyone had. "Mrs. Grant?" His tone shifted, fake politeness dripping through. "I didn't realize—" Evelyn ignored him, her eyes on the boy. His lips were pale. His breathing shallow. "He needs a hospital," she said quietly. Mark stepped closer. "They're leaving." "I'm not calling any ambulance." "We don't need drama." "He's having a medical emergency," Evelyn said, pulling out her phone. "You call anyone and she's fired," Mark said, smirking. "Zero tolerance," Alina froze. Her hands hovered helplessly over her child's small frame. "I can't lose this job." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "And you'll lose your son if we wait," Mark sneered. "Pick one, sweetheart. Paycheck or pity." The words sliced through the air. Alina looked at her boy, gasping for breath, and whispered, "I choose my son." Evelyn was already dialing. "Bring the Grant medical helicopter to Hillview Diner. Pediatric cardiac emergency." Outside, minutes later, the rhythmic chop of blades filled the air. A sleek medical helicopter descended onto the diner's parking lot. Windows rattled. Customers gasped. Mark's smug grin vanished. "What in God's name?" The door burst open. Paramedics rushed inside. "We have a cardiac alert for a minor," one announced. Evelyn pointed. "Him." The team moved fast, lifting the boy gently. Alina followed, panic and hope warring on her face. Mark stammered. You can't just—" Evelyn turned to him, calm but cold. "You're fired," he blinked. "You can't do that." She took out her phone again. "Buy this restaurant now." Her assistant's voice crackled on speaker. "Done, Mrs. Grant, it's yours," the staff gasped. Phones came out. Video started recording. "Get him out," she said, nodding at Mark. "And anyone who wants to stay, be here tomorrow. We start over." Then she followed the medics out into the sunlight, her heels sinking into the gravel as the helicopter lifted into the sky. For the first time in years, Evelyn Grant wasn't thinking about markets or mergers. She was thinking about one thing only, saving the boy her pride had almost cost her. The roar of the helicopter faded. And in the sudden quiet she whispered, Hold on, little one. Hold on. The story doesn't end here. The flight to the hospital would become the turning point of Evelyn's life, the moment where truth, guilt, and love would collide. The helicopter landed on the roof of St. Vincent's Children's Hospital, its blades slowing as a team of doctors ran forward. Evelyn stepped out after them, her hair whipping in the wind. The city stretched below her, glittering and indifferent, but all she could see was the small, pale child being lifted onto a gurney. Alina clung to her son's hand, whispering, "You're okay, baby. You're okay." Her uniform was still damp from spilled water and tears. Evelyn followed at a distance, afraid to speak, afraid of what she might say if she did. Inside, the hallways buzzed with urgency. Monitors beeped. The scent of antiseptic hung heavy. A doctor in blue scrubs stepped forward, brisk but kind. "We're taking him to pediatrics. Cardiac irregularity. Is he your son?" "Yes," Alina answered, voice trembling. "DJ Brooks. Please, just help him." Evelyn spoke before she could stop herself. "He's my grandson." The doctor blinked, startled, but didn't question it. "Then pray for him. We'll do everything we can." Hours passed in a blur of waiting. Evelyn sat on one end of the waiting room, hands clasped so tightly they hurt. Alina sat across from her, head in her hands. Between them stretched years of silence and misunderstanding. When the doctor returned, both women stood. "He's stable for now," she said. "We need to run tests. It looks genetic. Do either of you know of a history of heart defects in the family?" Evelyn's voice barely rose above a whisper. "His father had surgery at 6. Alina's head lifted slowly. Her eyes darkened with recognition. "Daniel had that too?" "Yes," Evelyn said, the word tasting like regret. The doctor nodded. "Then we'll know what to look for. But there's something else. The surgery we recommend isn't covered under basic insurance. It's considered experimental." Alina's voice broke. "How much?" $47,000. Alina laughed, but it came out like a sob. 47,000. I don't even make that in a year." The doctor's eyes softened. "We'll discuss options. For now, your son needs rest." When the doctor left, silence filled the room again. Then Alina turned, her voice trembling but fierce. "You knew," she said. "You knew about me, about him. You watched us struggle." Evelyn couldn't look at her. "Yes, 3 years, Alina whispered. 3 years I raised your grandson alone. Worked double shifts, sold my wedding ring to pay rent. And you," her voice cracked. "You stood by." Evelyn's throat closed. "I thought I was protecting my family's name." "No," Alina said, shaking her head. "You were protecting your pride." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes. "You're right." Alina took a deep breath, steadying herself. "He used to ask about you. He'd see your picture in magazines. I told him you were busy, that you traveled, that you'd meet him one day." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I lied to make you sound kind." Evelyn felt something in her chest crack open. "I can't change what I did, but I can make it right now." Alina stared at her, eyes shining with anger and exhaustion. "You think you can buy forgiveness?" "No," Evelyn said. "I think I can start earning it." At that moment, the doctor returned. "We'll need to begin preparation. We can't delay surgery much longer." Evelyn turned to her. "Charge everything to the Grant Foundation. Full coverage." The doctor hesitated. "That's a significant expense." "I don't care," Evelyn said. "Do it." The doctor nodded and left quickly. Alina stood there, stunned. "Why are you doing this?" "Because he's my grandson," Evelyn said quietly. "Because I should have been there from the start." Alina's hands shook. "You don't get to appear now and fix things with money. You don't get to erase the pain." "I'm not erasing it," Evelyn said. "I'm facing it." Alina turned away, tears running down her face. "You'll never understand what it's like to be powerless." Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm learning." The automatic doors opened and they wheeled DJ past them toward the surgical wing. His small hand lifted weakly, reaching for his mother. "Mama," he murmured. Alina ran beside the gurney until the nurses stopped her at the operating room doors. She bent down and kissed his forehead. "I'm right here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." When the doors closed, she leaned against the wall, trembling. Evelyn moved closer but stopped a few steps away. "Don't," Alina said. "Please, just don't." Evelyn wanted to speak, but there was nothing she could say that would make this better, so she stayed silent. Hours later, when the doctor emerged again, Alina stood so fast her chair toppled over. Is he okay? The doctor smiled gently. He's resting. The surgery was successful. Alina broke down in tears, shaking with relief. Evelyn closed her eyes and exhaled for the first time in hours. But the doctor wasn't finished. There's something you should know, she said softly. The procedure we used, the one that saved him, was developed through funding from the Daniel Grant Memorial Program. Your son's father helped make it possible. Evelyn's eyes widened. Daniel's research? Yes, the doctor said. He donated his trust fund to children's cardiac research before he passed. Without that, this treatment wouldn't exist. Evelyn's heart twisted. Her son, the one she'd called irresponsible, had saved his child's life from beyond the grave. She turned toward the window that looked into the recovery ward. DJ lay sleeping, his small chest rising and falling in rhythm with the beeping machines. Daniel's legacy wasn't money or success. It was love, and Evelyn realized that maybe this wasn't about forgiveness. Maybe it was about learning how to be human again. The night deepened, and as machines hummed softly, Evelyn whispered to herself, I won't fail them again. But fate had one more truth waiting, one she had hidden and would now have to face. Dawn broke gray over the city, soft light pouring through the hospital windows. Evelyn hadn't slept. She sat in the family room, still in yesterday's clothes, a cup of untouched coffee cooling beside her. Outside the window, a helicopter lifted off the pad. A reminder of how close she'd come to losing what she didn't even know she had. The door opened quietly. Alina stepped in, her face pale from exhaustion. Her uniform was gone, replaced with hospital scrubs the nurse had lent her. She looked smaller somehow, but stronger too. He's awake, she said softly. Evelyn rose immediately, but Alina lifted a hand. Before you see him, I need answers. Evelyn froze. 3 years, Alina said, voice steady but sharp. That's how long we've been alone. You hired someone to follow us, didn't you? Evelyn swallowed hard. Yes. Why? To make sure you didn't make claims, she said quietly. To protect what was left of my son's reputation. Alina's eyes burned with disbelief. You thought we wanted money. Evelyn nodded once, ashamed. I thought you'd use his death to gain access to our name, our assets. I was wrong. You were cruel, Alina corrected. You let me scrape through life while your grandson went to bed hungry some nights. You knew where we were. You saw everything. Evelyn's voice cracked. I saw, and I still did nothing. Silence filled the room. Then Evelyn reached into her bag and placed a folder on the table. There's something else, something I buried. You deserve to see it. Alina hesitated, then opened the folder. Her breath caught. It was a copy of a will. Daniel Grant's signature clear at the bottom. This says, he left everything to me and DJ? She whispered. Evelyn nodded. His trust fund, his life insurance, his shares in the company. He changed it days before he died. I intercepted the documents, told the lawyers not to contact you. Alina stared at her in disbelief. You stole from your own grandson? Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes. Yes, I told myself it was for Daniel, that you'd waste it, that you'd taint his legacy, but the truth was uglier. I couldn't stand the idea of my son's wealth going to someone I'd already judged unworthy. Alina's hands trembled. Do you have any idea what that did to us? I know now, Evelyn whispered. I've transferred everything back, with interest. It's DJ's, as it should have been. Alina's voice shook with anger. Do you think that makes us even? No, Evelyn said quietly. But maybe it lets me start to repair what I destroyed. Alina turned away, her shoulders heaving. You watched us suffer for years because of your pride. I know, Evelyn said again, her own voice barely audible. I watched him blow out candles on a cake you couldn't afford. I watched you walk home from double shifts in the rain. Every month I got those reports, and every month I told myself you didn't deserve help. I was wrong every time. Alina faced her, tears falling freely now. He asked about you, every birthday, every Christmas. He thought maybe one day you'd want to meet him. Evelyn's hands shook as she wiped her eyes. "Can I see him now?" Alina hesitated, then nodded slowly. "He's asking for you." They walked down the corridor together. Machines beeped softly behind closed doors. When they entered the recovery room, DJ lay propped up against a pile of pillows, his small hands clutching a stuffed bear. His face was pale but peaceful. When he saw Alina, he smiled weakly. "Mama." Then he noticed Evelyn. "Who's the lady?" Alina glanced at Evelyn. Their eyes met. "That's your grandma," Alina said softly. "Your daddy's mama." DJ blinked. "Really? The one from the pictures?" Evelyn stepped closer, her heart hammering. "Yes, sweetheart, the one from the pictures." "You look like Daddy," the boy said, studying her face. "Are you nice?" Evelyn knelt beside the bed. "I'm trying to be." He grinned faintly. "That's good." Alina turned away, wiping her eyes. Evelyn reached for DJ's hand, tiny against hers. "You were so brave," she whispered. "Your daddy would be proud of you." DJ smiled, eyes fluttering with sleep. "He talks to me, when I'm scared." Evelyn's voice caught. "What does he say?" "He says Grandma will come, and when she does, I won't be lonely anymore." The words shattered her. She pressed her hand against her mouth, trying not to cry. Alina looked at her quietly. For the first time, her expression softened. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something that looked like understanding. Later that evening, when DJ slept again, Evelyn stood in the hospital courtyard. The city lights blinked in the distance. She called her assistant. "I want the hospital administrator here tomorrow morning. We need to talk about the families who can't afford surgery." "Of course, ma'am. What should I tell him?" "Tell him we're going to change everything." She ended the call, looking back up at the windows of the children's wing. Inside one of them, a small boy slept peacefully, his heart beating stronger with every hour. Evelyn closed her eyes and whispered, "You gave your life to protect him, Daniel. Now I'll spend mine making sure no one else has to beg for mercy I once denied." The story wasn't finished. The money could heal part of what she'd broken, but not all. The next test would come when she faced the people who'd suffered the same injustice she had helped create. And this time she wouldn't turn away. Evelyn kept her promise. The next morning, the hospital's board gathered in the glass-walled conference room, their polished shoes and expensive watches catching the light. The air was thick with tension. She stood at the head of the table, no makeup, no public smile, just raw determination. "From this day forward," she said, "no child is denied life-saving treatment because of money. Not here, not anywhere that bears my name." The executives shifted in their seats. One man cleared his throat. "Mrs. Grant, that would require an enormous fund." "Then we'll build one," she interrupted. $50 million. The Daniel Grant Foundation for Pediatric Cardiac Care. She looked each of them in the eye. "This isn't charity. It's justice." By the end of that week, the papers were signed. Families who had once been turned away were now receiving calls telling them their children could be treated. Evelyn made sure every one of those calls ended with the same words, "You don't owe us anything." But the hospital was only the beginning. 2 weeks later, she walked into the diner she now owned. The same one where her grandson had gasped for air while a small man with a loud mouth humiliated his mother. The staff froze as she entered. The smell of frying oil still hung in the air, but something had changed. The fear was gone. "Good morning," she said simply. "As of today, this place runs differently. Higher pay, health coverage, paid leave. Dignity is now part of the menu." The cooks exchanged stunned glances. The waitresses whispered in disbelief. Maria, the oldest among them, spoke up. "And Miss Brooks? She's the one who made this place bearable." Evelyn smiled. "Alina will be back. As assistant manager." "If she'll have it." Gasps filled the room. A few people clapped, and for the first time the diner felt like a place of hope instead of struggle. That afternoon, Evelyn returned to the hospital. DJ was sitting up in bed, drawing with bright markers on a fresh pad of paper. Alina sat beside him, reading quietly. When she looked up, her expression was guarded but calm. "I saw the news," she said. "You've turned the world upside down." Evelyn smiled faintly. "It was already upside down." I'm just putting it back the way it should have been. Alina hesitated. You could have kept hiding the truth forever. No one would have known. Evelyn looked at her grandson's drawing, a crooked house with 3 stick figures holding hands. I would have known, she said, and I've lived with enough ghosts. For the first time, Alina smiled, small but real. He calls you Grandma now, she said. He told the nurse you saved him with your magic helicopter. Evelyn laughed softly. He's not wrong. As weeks passed, something delicate began to grow between the two women. Not friendship yet, but a fragile truce made of shared pain and love for the same boy. They learned to exist side by side, slowly replacing old wounds with small acts of grace. 6 weeks later, a press conference filled the grand hall of the Grant Medical Foundation. Reporters crowded the aisles. Flashbulbs flickered. At the podium stood Evelyn, wearing a dark blue suit and a calm she hadn't felt in years. Beside her sat Alina, poised and composed, and DJ swinging his legs happily from his chair. 6 weeks ago, Evelyn began, I nearly lost my grandson to a system that values wealth over life. I built that system. Now I'm dismantling it. The room fell silent. Cameras clicked. She gestured to Alina. This is Alina Brooks, the new director of the Daniel Grant Foundation. She knows what it means to fight for your child in a world that doesn't listen, and she will make sure no one fights alone again. Applause filled the hall. Alina stepped forward, voice steady. This foundation isn't about money, she said. It's about fairness. Every parent deserves a chance to watch their child grow up. Every child deserves a heartbeat that isn't for sale. Evelyn watched her, pride and humility flooding through her. When the conference ended, DJ ran to her and hugged her knees. Grandma, everyone clap for Mama, she's a hero. Evelyn knelt and kissed his hair. So are you, my love. You saved us both. That evening, they went together to the cemetery. The air was warm, the sky streaked with gold. DJ placed a bundle of flowers, a mix of white lilies and bright carnations, in front of Daniel's grave. I told you Daddy liked colors better, he said with a grin. Evelyn smiled. You're right. He always did. They stood there in quiet peace. Alina whispered, He'd be proud of you. Evelyn shook her head gently. He'd be proud of you. You did what I couldn't. You loved without fear. As they turned to leave, DJ slipped his small hands into both of theirs. Mama, Grandma, do you think Daddy can see us? Alina looked at him tenderly. I think he sees everything. Good, DJ said. Then he knows we're friends now. Evelyn's eyes filled, but she didn't hide the tears. Yes, sweetheart. He knows. They walked back toward the car, the boys swinging their hands between them, humming softly. For the first time, Evelyn didn't feel the weight of regret. She felt the pull of possibility. The world she'd built had been cold and polished, but this and this messy, fragile human life, was what Daniel had wanted her to find. Love that didn't measure worth by skin or class, love that mended what pride had broken. As they reached the car, DJ turned back toward the grave and waved. Bye, Daddy. We'll come again next week. Evelyn smiled, her voice steady and full of peace. Yes, baby. We will. Behind them, the wind moved through the cemetery, carrying the scent of lilies and carnations, and something lighter, freer, like forgiveness finally taking flight. The billionaire had found her redemption not in fortune or fame, but in family. And this time she would never let go. Spring came early that year. The city trees were just beginning to bloom, pale pink petals scattering across the sidewalks. For Evelyn, it felt like the first season in years that didn't carry grief in its air. 3 months had passed since the foundation launch. Every day her phone filled with stories of children whose surgeries had been paid in full. Families she'd never met sent thank you letters, photos of their little ones running again, laughing again. She printed each one and kept them in a box labeled Daniel's work. But even peace can stir the ghosts of guilt. One morning she found herself driving to the neighborhood where Alina used to live. The old apartment complex stood tired and cracked, balconies sagging with rust. Children played in the courtyard, their laughter echoing between the walls. Evelyn parked and sat for a long time watching. She thought of all the birthdays DJ had celebrated here, the nights Alina had stayed awake worrying about bills. She stepped out and walked toward the front office. The manager looked up from his desk, startled to see her. Can I help you? I'd like to buy the building, she said. He blinked. All of it? Yes, and I'm not changing the rent. In fact, I'm cutting it, and the repairs you've ignored for 10 years start today. He stammered. Mrs. Grant, that's generous, but why? Because these families deserve more than survival. They deserve safety. That same afternoon, the residents gathered outside, murmuring in disbelief as contractors arrived. Evelyn stood before them, nervous but resolute. No one's moving out, she told them. No one's losing their home. The world doesn't change overnight, but it can start here. An older woman in a headscarf reached out and took Evelyn's hand. God bless you, she said softly. Evelyn smiled faintly. He already has. He gave me a grandson. That evening, she visited the diner again. It was different now. New paint, fresh uniforms, laughter filling the air instead of fear. Alina stood behind the counter talking with Maria, both of them smiling. When she saw Evelyn, she waved her over. You're just in time, Alina said. DJ's coming after school. He's been bragging all week that Grandma promised him pancakes. Evelyn laughed. Then Grandma better deliver. They sat together in the booth where it had all begun, where rage and cruelty had once filled the air. Now sunlight poured through the window, catching the shine of clean tables and warm faces. I've been thinking, Alina said. The foundation's growing fast. We're getting calls from other cities asking for help. You sure you're ready for this? Evelyn smiled, her eyes soft but firm. For the first time in my life, I am. Moments later, the diner door swung open and DJ burst in, backpack bouncing. He spotted them and ran full speed into Evelyn's arms. Grandma! She hugged him tight, breathing in the scent of crayons and sunshine. I missed you, brave boy. He pulled back, grinning. I drew something for you. From his backpack, he pulled a folded sheet of paper. It was a drawing of a big white building with a red heart above the door. That's the hospital, he said proudly. The one Daddy made. The one that saved me. I called it the House of Hearts. Evelyn's voice trembled. It's perfect, DJ nodded solemnly. Mama says we're going to help other kids' hearts too. Right, Grandma? Yes, sweetheart, she said. That's exactly what we're going to do. The bell over the door chimed again. A reporter entered with a camera crew, asking if they could film the diner that had become a symbol of change. Alina looked at Evelyn, who nodded. This time, the attention didn't feel like vanity. It felt like purpose. While the crew set up, DJ climbed into Evelyn's lap, resting his head on her shoulder. Grandma, are you happy now? Evelyn paused, looking at Alina across the table. I think I'm finally learning how to be. Later, as they left the diner together, a crowd had gathered outside. Families, former patients, staff, neighbors. They clapped as Evelyn stepped out. She wasn't the cold figure from magazine covers anymore. She was something rarer, humbler, stronger. A woman pushed forward from the crowd carrying a baby in her arms. Mrs. Grant, she said tearfully, your foundation paid for my daughter's surgery. She's alive because of you. Evelyn reached out and touched the baby's hand, tiny and warm. She's alive because people cared, she said gently. All I did was start listening. The woman smiled through tears. Then please don't ever stop. As the sun dipped low behind the city skyline, Evelyn felt a weight lift that she hadn't realized she still carried. She looked down at DJ, who was skipping ahead, hand in hand with Alina. Daniel had once told her that love was the only investment that never lost value. She had ignored him then. But now, watching his son laugh and his mother smile, she finally understood what he'd meant. They reached the park at the end of the street. DJ let go of their hands and ran to the swings, his laughter echoing like music. Evelyn and Alina watched him, silent for a moment. You know, Alina said quietly, he talks about his dad every night. Says he dreams about him flying. Evelyn nodded, eyes glistening. Maybe he is. Maybe Daniel's still watching us, making sure we finally got it right. DJ called out from the swings. Mama, Grandma, come push me. Evelyn smiled through tears and walked toward him. All right, my little hero, she said softly. Let's fly. The swing rose higher and higher, cutting through the golden light. DJ laughed, his voice bright against the sky. Alina laughed too, her joy unguarded for the first time in years. Evelyn stood behind them, hands steady on the swing chains, heart full. The ghosts of the past had finally quieted. Pride had turned to love, guilt to grace. And for the first time, the world felt exactly as her son had dreamed it could be. Not perfect, but human, and full of second chances. When DJ jumped off the swing and ran back to her, Evelyn lifted him into her arms. He wrapped his small arms around her neck and whispered, "Grandma, I think Daddy's happy now." She closed her eyes, holding him close. "I know he is, sweetheart. So am I." The park fell quiet, bathed in soft evening light, and Evelyn realized that the truest wealth she'd ever held was right there, in a child's heartbeat. A mother's forgiveness and a future built not on power, but on love that finally learned to stay.